Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Your Wellbeing Hub's podcast. I'm delighted to be joined once again by Dominic, and I have to say I really enjoy these conversations that we have together, Dominic. Now, last time we spoke a lot about kind of mental health on a global scale, and for this discussion, we kind of wanted to give more top tips about how we can look after ourselves physically and mentally so that we have a positive state of well-being. So that's our kind of focus for the next 20 minutes or so. And I think really where I wanted to start, Dominic, is I know that you're an expert in breath work, and we know how good that can be for your physical and your mental health. So first of all, for anyone who doesn't really know what breath work is and what it means, can you just tell us what it is and, how can you do it?
Brilliant. Well, I'll start off and sort of go on a negative. If you look around communities or driving or shopping, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of people impatient, the impatience can lead to frustration. Frustration can lead to aggression. Aggression can lead to, unfortunately, sometimes violence. And I will state that's possibly because 90% of the population is probably breathing incorrectly. Can you do me a favour, Sally, and just put your hand on your chest? That's the wrong thing to do. Put your hand down.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm saying that deliberately, guys, because if you're breathing from the chest, the thoracic region, your blood pressure will go through the roof, your anxiety will go through the roof, and more importantly, it will affect the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a wandering nerve all the way down by the hips, all the way up to the primitive brain on the brainstem, and it detects your breathing. If you're over breathing, which comes from the chest, okay, most people are breathing between 12 to 20 breaths per minute, okay, which is over breathing. Optimal breathing is around 4 to 5-ish breaths per minute, believe it or not. So it's not the under breathing, it's the over breathing, which the chest breathing produces. And that means that it sends a signal to the brain and you think that you're under attack. So you may breathe even harder and faster. And guess what that does? Suddenly your heart starts beating faster to get more blood through. You can feel your heart breathing, and suddenly in your brain you think, oh my God, I'm anxious, I'm under attack. So it's a vicious cycle. Yeah. So there is another term. It's called parasympathetic breathing, which the first one, sympathetic system, or sympathetic breathing as we call it, is a bit like the accelerator on your car. It's very powerful, but too much of it is dangerous. So and that produces adrenaline. Short bursts is fantastic for acute stress, short-term stress. Long-term chronic stress will cause disease and disorder, at the other end. So quickly going into parasympathetic, I know we've got a short period of time. That is basically like the brakes on your car. Slows you down, relaxes you, and hopefully is nice and safe. It's also called rest and digest, all right? So if you go like that with your thumb, Sally, please find your navel or belly button. And then I'm going to go like that with my finger and just reach down with your finger. Wherever that finger touches, about 2 inches below your belly button, please just put both hands gently. All we're going to do in a couple of seconds, I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, inhale. You'll inhale through the nose for 3 seconds and push the belly out as though it's a hot air balloon. Hold your breath for 4 seconds. I'll count you down. Then exhale through the mouth gently for 5 seconds. And the most important thing is exhaling through the mouth, which switches on or turns on your parasympathetic rest or digest system, which calms you down. Okay? Mm-hmm. So 3, 2, 1, inhale. Hold the breath. 4, 3, 2, 1, exhale. Okay. And we do this a number of times, by the way. And you'll know you're doing it right because the belly will rise, then it will fall down. And what it actually does, I'll just give you the benefits. Number one, you'll become calmer. You'll feel more in control. Why is that? Because you'll emotionally regulate. You'll become more positive. There will literally be physical changes in your brain. You'll have more energy within the body. You feel more in control. And also, you'll feel powerful. Everything changes. And I think if with our research, it wasn't the Chinese who invented it. Yes, it was probably cavemen or cave women, but it was the Indians that originally started all of this breath work off, and then it transferred across to China. But it's extremely powerful to calm you down and get you relaxed. But here's the one I forgot to leave out, or I did leave out. Your immune system goes through the roof. sorry, Boris, you didn't tell us any of this back in 2020, but you can do the research yourself, guys. But this breath work is extremely powerful. And also, if you're really geeky, further down the line, if you hold your breath for longer, not just 4 seconds, your performance in the gym goes up because it affects your mitochondria anyway, which tags on with the energy system and then the immune system. So that's a quick tip anyway.
Oh, I love it. I love the science behind it as well, because I think sometimes people think breathing, like seriously, how much can that do? Just breathe in and out. But there is so much science behind it with our kind of primitive brain.
Yes, definitely.
And trying to calm all of that down through our breathing. And it is so powerful. And it's fascinating because, you know, I do mindfulness breathing quite a lot, actually. And again, you know, somebody can be easily scrolling through their phone for minutes, but they can't spend 15 minutes doing a bit of breathing, you know. And it's so fascinating how we might be wedded to this, but actually we know, well, I could spend half of my time sitting on the sofa and just doing some breath work, and that will support my physical and my mental health. So I find that really interesting, and the science behind it.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's there for everybody to research if they want. There's a famous book called Breath, if they want to get that, by James Nestor, which will literally make your hair curl. Not mine because I've got none, but you will, if you look into the science of it, there's so many things that, and then he talks about nasal breathing as well. You know, it will increase lung capacity. One of the things I'd give a tip, the problem with life is, in us as humans, it's habitual. Everything becomes habitual. You could use the phone for a little bit of relaxation music, which I give my clients, and then they can do the breath work to that.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is, probably one of the issues with us humans, we're creatures of habit. So basically, what actually happens is we get used to breathing from here. And if we don't know about it, like you've just said, we may say, oh gosh, you know, belly breathing, what are you talking about? But once you start to perform it on a regular basis, everything calms, and it's really good for you. And also, here's the point. I call something psychological time and clock time. Psychological time is when you're in your head. Do you know what that's going to cause? Paranoia. You're going to think, when's Dominic going to shut up? He goes on a lot. What happened yesterday? What's happening to your left foot on the floor at the moment? Okay. So the problem is, people are in the heads. They need to get in the body.
Yeah.
So they need to get these feelings back. Okay. The biggest thing they've done to us, and it has been a learning response through maybe the governments, is separate us from our head, from our heart.
Yeah.
That, again, if you look at it, go into the research about your heart, that's your moral compass. That's maybe another, you know, bit of information for another time. But that's the thing, Sally, isn't it? And I know you're a big fan of exercise. What do you think about physical exercise? How will that help us?
Oh gosh, I think this is huge. I mean, our physical health and mental health are pretty much one and the same thing, right? So if we aren't physically primed, setting the foundations and fundamentals, then how can we possibly be mentally well? So for me, physical activity plays a huge part in how you kind of feel every single day. And we know that people get caught up in the busyness of life and, oh, I don't have time to pop out for that walk. You know, we have to make positive choices. These things don't happen by themselves. We can get into these habits, but if we can look at our structure, look at our routines, how can we start to build the physical activity in? Because again, there's so much research out there, right, around, you know, it's good for your physical health. It reduces inflammation in the body, you know, releases all those fantastic happiness hormones as well. You get the sense of achievement. It's challenging, but you accomplish something. There's so much there for us physically and mentally. So yeah, and it might be going for that daily walk, which is great, but also doing something a little bit more intense as well. So I remember when I was younger, if we were walking to school, for example, through the park, Mum would say, oh, let's do Scouts pace. And that was basically, you do 100 walks and then you do 100 runs, and then you do 100 walks, then you do 100 runs. So I don't know if there's an up-to-date term, but it was called Scouts pace. So even now, if I go on a walk, I might do 50 paces at walking speed, and then 50 kind of running speed, and then 50 walking speed, just to change the intensity. I think your body can start to plateau a bit, and you get used to those daily walks, and then you might not feel the same effect. So I think it's good to try to have a mix and blend of different intensities, or exercises as well. Like yoga can be quite intense, but it's not necessarily like a sprint or pumping 50 kg in the gym, for example.
I think what you're saying there, and going back to your mum, if I can, she was right on the money there, because of high intensity training, fartlek training, speed play, Swedish word, you know, fast and slow, and we need that. And I think yoga, as you're saying, that's a tremendous one. I know there is hot yoga. I think my brother did hot yoga once, and in 6 weeks he got a six-pack. And by the way, I'm not saying that six-pack is the goal, but I'm saying some of the stuff can be quite intense.
Yeah.
You don't have to do hot yoga, but what I understand when we did a lot of research with the Indian yogis is that the body positions, you become more in tune with your body.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that was separated from, the body actually feeling our body and getting back into the feelings of the body. That's what governs the universe. It's all about on a vibrational level. But I think another one to think about with exercise, like you're saying correctly about high intensity, I'll give a quick story. You've got an 80-year-old Doris, you've got 37-year-old Denise. Who would you want to buy the car off? I'm going to put it into your mind. I'll buy the car off Denise. Do you know why? I think Doris won't even get out of third gear. Have you ever seen the old dears in the car parks? They're in third gear. They don't get to fifth gear. What I'm trying to say is we've got heart and lungs that needs to be pushed, would you say? So I'm going to buy the car off Denise because she's gone through all of the gears. She's a good driver. Yeah? Okay. So when we're running, we're only probably, if we're jogging, we're in third gear. If we're sprinting, we're probably in fifth gear. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're going from low intensity, moderate to high, and we need that and back down the other way to get these arteries opening, to get the blood flowing and get the endorphins.
Yeah.
And as you're saying, it's a win-win, isn't it? During the event, you're going to sweat or perspire. You're going to enjoy it, okay? Once you start getting into it, around 20 minutes, that's when the endorphins kick in. But then afterwards, you get that glow. You've de-stressed yourself. We've said that, didn't we, at the beginning? If you're out of breath, you could call it a talk test. If you're out of breath, then I guarantee during the exercise and afterwards, you've forgotten what your problem was 5 minutes before you started.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I remember I practiced yoga for about a year, and then I found netball. And I've refound netball. So I'm an avid netball fan. But when I was practicing yoga, I remember I'd had an awful day at work, and I was in a really kind of I felt angry and low and sad and anxious. I felt all these horrible feelings. This is a few years ago. And I remember I had yoga in the evening, and I just thought, nothing's going to change my mood. I'm just going to be an awful evening. And I came out of yoga and I was like, oh, I feel so good. But I was so convinced because I'd had such a bad day at work. I was like, nothing's going to change it. And actually, when you're in there, you're focused. You're connecting your mind with your body. You're being present and in the moment rather than stuck up here. And it was unreal. And I think sometimes we can really underestimate the power of physical activity, whether that is going for a walk or maybe going for a bit of a run, doing a HIIT workout, doing 10 sit-ups or 20 burpees or whatever it is. How quickly we can start to feel the positive effects of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another one to try and bring in is, and we were discussing before we started to record, didn't we? We're talking about social cohesion, getting the community together. What's stopping you or me saying to the neighbour, fitness allowing, invite them for a walk?
Yeah.
What better way to find out about your community than go for a walk with them? Somebody you don't know. It could be a family member, but what about your next door neighbour?
Yeah.
And there is a group, I believe, called Meetup. You've got them all over the country.
Oh, yeah.
Where you can join walking groups or talking groups and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's a good one for our audience to look up Meetup.
Yeah.
If you're living on your own or you feel isolated, try and join a group called Meetup or something like that.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, this is so true. So many people have felt lonely and isolated in the last few years. So these local community groups can be so powerful in that connection because we know how. What's the research say around health consequences of loneliness? Something like equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes every single day, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, yes. So you're right saying that. I think it was Dr. Robert Walding. It was an 80-year study on happiness, and he stated that being isolated, being lonely, will kill you quicker than cigarettes. It's an 80-year study, and they found that it wasn't the money, status, or the power. They found that at the age of 50, it was your close relationships, how the quality of them was a predictor of your health in your 80s, more accurate than cholesterol markers in your blood.
Yeah, fascinating.
So it shows that your relationship with your better half, if you're, a personal relationship or even a family member or even community.
Mm.
And again, I think that just shows to me that, yes, we are tribal to a point, and we do need to connect to people and say hello to people. Try it, locally. You smile at somebody, generally they'll smile back at you. It's innate within us.
Yeah.
I do feel, I've got to be careful with the audience what I say, but I do feel there's a nefarious or an insidious agenda to move us away from our heartfelt compassion to others. That's just my opinion, but I'll leave that for the audience to decide.
Yeah, I think there's a lot around community and connection that can feel like it's missing a little bit. And I think because so many of us are so caught up in the busyness and the stress and anxiety, and if we're kind of breathing up here, then we're stuck up here and all of that kind of stuff, you almost forget the human connection because of the survival mode that you're in.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm in survival mode, so I just need to, we forget the connections and all of the stuff that we need. That's good for us, but then we might, be moving away from it.
We were going to say, as we said before, and it's interesting you said about the survival mode. That's part of the problem. That I feel that, and I'll say this to everybody, this is just my opinion. I'm not materialistic. That's just me. I'm not saying that's bad or good, but money has become God. I thought 4 years ago, health was God. And some people have sort of forgotten about that, So I feel that, if we put it this way, you could have, I don't know, I'm going to pluck a figure out the air, £2.7 million in the bank. But if your knees are shot or you can't get out of the house, what's that money for? What's that money for? Or you could have a huge mansion and you're living on your own. Yeah. How is that fun? You could have chandeliers, you could have a swimming pool, but at the end of the day, I think we've evolved to become social creatures.
Yeah.
We need to socialize with people and say hello. And I think one of the concerning things is, and I'll sort of pull my phone out, which we were showing earlier, is people are living their life through the phone too much. We're not looking at the micro expressions. The body is a tool, and we leak signals to other people. But if you're not used to these signals, you could think I'm being funny to you because I'm smiling at you. Because we're living through the Disney Channel through the phone, which isn't real. And it's I think it's not saying that I'm the big I am at all. I'm just talking about, I'm quite a friendly person. I like to connect with people, and I think there's a situation where friendliness is almost a cure.
There's so much research around this, around kindness. So
yes, yeah.
I remember listening to someone and they were talking about all the research about kindness and how it gets into our physiology, how our relationships get into our physiology, and people have much better physical and mental health outcomes when the social support is there. And there is decades of research around. And this started with, they were testing, I think they were testing rabbits, or they were testing something on rabbits. And there were lots of rabbits, and each scientist looked after, say, 6 or 8 rabbits. And they were all in the same environment, being tested with the same thing. And one group of rabbits had much better outcomes than others. And so they were kind of like, well, what's going on there? Like, we've got all our protocols in place and all this scientific and, everything's in place. Yes. And they found that the rabbits that had the better outcomes, the scientist would hold them and stroke them. And I kind of thought, oh, well, that's interesting. And then they had a look at other research where on a mental health ward, on paper, looking at the person's kind of diagnosis and whatever else, they said, well, on paper, they should be doing well. But when they came, they present and they'd be really, really unwell. And then they also found that, on paper, this person should be really sick, but when they met them, they were doing really well. And it was all to do with their relationships and their support network around them. That was the only constant that they could come to. So even though people had really serious diagnoses and mental health conditions, they were well supported with loving and caring relationships. Their outcomes are so much better. And it gets into your physiology. People's outcomes are so much better.
Amazing. And that then is just all the evidence for people to be kinder to other people. Remember my nan, rest her soul, years ago, she said, oh, Dominic, I like that doctor because he or she's got a better bedside manner. People don't realise that language is medicine. And if they want to go into more research, you won't go into it now. It's basically epigenetics. Epigenetics states that you turn on or off your cells. Everything's down to a belief level. That's why hypnosis, that's why breathwork, that's why when you're calmer, you feel more in control. And a belief is massive for all of us. Okay. If you look around at most successful people, ask them why they are successful. You can see why they're so successful. Whether it's Jessica Ennis, whether it's some of the top people in business, J.K. Rowling, thinking of those sort of people, it's belief. It's self-belief at the end of the day. There's a famous comedian called Dave Chappelle, a black comedian from America. I quite like him. And he did an interview once. He walked out on stage and he's smoking, talking about this, by the way. And I just remember this image. He had the cigarette and he said, I walked out on stage, people were booing me. And I looked around like that and his family was there. And then he went, do you know what? This ain't so bad. He said, from that day forward, I was fearless. So again, what is fear anyway? It's only your perception, My belief is different than your belief. And everything you create, I'll state, is through your eyes. There's a filter. And unfortunately, the past pollutes the present. And that's where we've got to move away from. And as you said, stay more in the body, which keeps connected to the heart, something called heart coherence. And you are in the now. The Power of Now, I think, was a famous book by Eckhart Tolle. That's a very famous book about being in the now. Because, sorry, I went off on a tangent. I said psychological time and clock time. Psychological time is in the head. When you're given an illusion of time, that's in the head. Your body is always in the now. So when you get more into your feeling, you'll be calmer and you're not rushing as much, But, and it can be frustrating. You go out and about relaxed and people are racing up and down the shops. It's a Saturday or a Sunday. I know the calendar has changed, so like a Sunday is like a normal day in the week. But I do wonder why these people have got to get so quickly from A to B. And when they get to B, what have you achieved? And most of the RTAs, the road traffic accidents, if you do the research, are because people are speeding. So people still haven't learned. And again, you could draw a parallel with health. I thought we'd all learned that health is the biggest thing in your life. You're healthy, you're wealthy, but it's whether you really want to be healthy. Because we can give all this advice, it's whether people take it on board.
Yeah.
And that could be a conversation for next time regarding the ego.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much. Loads in here. I've loved this conversation and look forward to the next one. Thanks so much for your time, Dominic.
Thank you, Sally. Take care. God bless. Bye. Bye.